Welcome to this session of Workforce Reimagined. My guest today is Tony Holmes, the practice lead for solution architects for the public sector at Pluralsight. Tony, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about education and training, but I have to go back to one thing because Pluralsight put out an AI skills report recently, and I found this just fascinating. You guys talked about 1,200 technology decision makers. The overwhelming majority of the executives and tech workers said they pretend to know more about AI than they actually do. And then you also guys did another survey that talked about AI strategies, investment, and skills. And many agencies or many respondents have yet to put together an AI strategy to really for a comprehensive training and education. So this creates a whole series of challenges, especially for federal agencies. Talk about what you're starting to see. How can agencies really keep up with these rapid advancements?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to understand is that the traditional workforce models that we use today, or in many places today, not in all, obviously, because we've got clients that we're helping work through these issues, is we tend to have very rigid roles. Okay, government's very great at creating rigid roles, and they tend to focus on siloed expertise, and these positions tend to have very long hiring timelines. It's just it doesn't hold up to the speed that technology is moving at these days. So I think agencies are trying to respond to technologies like AI, cloud, and cybersecurity that are literally evolving monthly, while trying to deal with hiring freezes and the budget constraints that we've all been reading about, and indeed an aging workforce, which was kind of one of the biggest headlines before all the budgetary constraints came along. So the idea that we have used traditionally, that we can just hire our way through every new challenge, doesn't work. It doesn't hold up to this problem. But here's the thing. The federal government already knows how to do cross-skilling. So cross-skilling is an incredibly powerful way to start solving for these problems. The federal government's been cross-skilling for decades. If we look to our armed forces, for example, and how we train the operators and the teams within the DoD, they're all cross-trained across multiple different roles. So you have this situation where, you know, especially the elite teams, you have these people that are trained to do each other's roles in part or in full in order to ensure that mission success happens, because you can't afford to leave gaps, and you need that communication. You need everybody on the same page. And that's exactly what cross-skilling brings. It brings that kind of resilience to our technology workforces. Instead of searching for perfect hires or blowing out budgets, it's about making everyone more of a generalist. It's about developing enough overlap in skills across the key areas at the moment, like AI, data, and cyber and cloud, so they can collaborate faster and pivot as the priorities shift. And I think it boosts morale too. When people can step up and stretch into adjacent domains and see their impact grow, the engagement in their career goes up. And that's how you move from a more restrictive model to a proactive one, where your workforce is actually driving the change. So it's not theory, and it's not really a wish list. It's a proven model that's already a part of what the government does on a day-to-day basis. We just need to take our experience from people like the DoD and start to apply it across the board in FedCiv tech teams and things like that. And that's how I think the government's going to be able to make its workforce more agile, more efficient, and ready for whatever comes along.
Technology has been one of those places where cross-skilling has not necessarily always happened, right? You get hired, you do cybersecurity. You get hired, you do data science. You get hired, you do IT help desk. But what you're saying, I think, if I understand correctly, is agencies need to start hiring people with maybe a basic set of skills, but then quickly move them into other skills that are related. So, hey, we're going to hire you as a data scientist, but we're also going to train you to develop AI models, and we're also going to train you to do some low-code, no-code type of work, so you can use those AI models and that data at the same time. Delve into that, how this could work within technology.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting point, and it doesn't mean that we don't hire people. I think one of the problems that we've got away from is we've kind of taken specialization over the years and put it on a pedestal and said, this is the ultimate ideal. The ultimate ideal is to be the best cyber person you can be. The ultimate ideal is to be the best, the most focused data person you can be. And that's not to say that these people aren't super valuable. They are, but they're a part of the solution. And I think what we've missed along the way is the ability to look at people and go, oh, this is interesting. This person may not be as strong in data as the other folks, but they've got a background in coding. They've got a background in Python. They've got a background in cybersecurity. And the thing when you look at tools like artificial intelligence, especially generative AI, is they're a force multiplier. AI on its own is kind of powerful depending on how you look at it, but it's especially powerful when you use its combined domains. Oh, we want to combine artificial intelligence with cybersecurity and cloud. So all of a sudden we get this big convergence of skills. And I think we need to do the same thing with people, but I don't think the way to get people most engaged in this is, I think that we need to allow them to follow their passion, because we've got two problems in the government space, and we've seen it time and time again, where people are perhaps learning artificial intelligence, they're learning generative AI on their spare time, but because we don't engage it in their careers, they do this for a certain amount of time, and then they start disengaging from their government job and start looking for opportunities. Where can I use these skills that I'm really passionate about? Where can I actually apply this new technology? And I think what we have is the technology opportunities in the government aren't any different to those in the private sector. I think we just need to make them more available and allow people to be able to see them. So what it does is it turns the learning and the engagement from a push endeavor, which is what the government currently does. You're going to learn this, you're going to do that, to a pull endeavor where people say, I want to learn this and I want to learn that adjacent skill. And even though it's not a part of my job, it makes them stronger technologists. So, and that feels very foreign to many organizations, many agencies I've spoken to. But when you engage people as to where their passions are, you get far more productivity and cross-pollination of ideas than when you dictate and manage what they should be learning.
I think that's a really important part, is really from the push to the pull side. The challenge, of course, Tony, is I'm so busy. I have so much work to do. Now I have fewer people doing the work, and I'm still required to do so much. So this actually has to almost get pushed down from the top, but also pulled up from the bottom. Hey, you have this opportunity to learn. We want you to take it. And then, okay, I have this opportunity. How do I go about it? Here's some courses. Here's places where you can go to do that learning. So are you starting to see that within your public sector clients, the push pull, and as well as top down, bottom up?
Yeah, so the idea behind that, the way to help people and agencies do that, is what we find that the way to overcome it is with micro learning. So if we think about it, problems don't pre-announce themselves. You know, it'd be great in a world where someone could sit down and say, oh, 6 months from now, we're going to have this new cloud project and we're going to have these problems along the way. So we're going to send these people on those boot camps and they're going to be all prepared for it. Life doesn't work like that. What you find is problems appear, gaps appear in our knowledge sets, and what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to break out of where we are, of our workday, and take 15 minutes to go and learn about this problem or the issue that we're facing, or gain that piece of knowledge. And it allows you to do learning in context, and learning in context typically meets people where they are in the moment that they need it. So you do the knowledge and then you break out into a hands-on lab, so you get to practice it in a safe environment. You know, you do these cloud skills, you break out a lab and you learn to apply them in a non-production environment. And then you use, one of the reasons that we've got analytics underneath this at Pluralsight is because when you do that, you can then start to have visibility and see where the skill gaps are, but also where the skill strengths and overlaps are. And it gives the leadership an incredibly empowering set of visuals to understand when employees are growing and help employees feel like they're growing, not just checking compliance boxes, but actually reaching out and grabbing the information they need just in time. And the other thing it does is it creates internal mobility as well. It creates meaning, and it makes people have a role in an organization where they feel like they can contribute in multiple places. So I think in order to sort of make the most of this, and as you said, it's becoming increasingly hard to say, okay, these folks are going to come out for 2 weeks and go away and learn, and then they'll come back hopefully with some knowledge, to more like, we're going to put these people into the mix. They're going to want to build their careers, and instead of having event-based training, we're going to have a culture of continuous learning, not as an HR initiative, but as a mission enabler. And that's how we build teams that evolve with the tech rather than falling behind it with large and cumbersome, unfocused chunks of learning.
Tony, we've got about a minute left in this session. This is a fascinating conversation. What advice or what best practices, I'll give you kind of the last word. What's your recommendation to agencies as they kind of want to build this culture of continuous learning?
You really have to make time for learning. I mean, we discussed it in the last point, and you said, you know, there's increasing pressures and increasing budget deficits, and we need to do more with fewer people. And I think to that perspective, if you can take something like data and apply it to your workforce, if you can get the underlying data from your workforce, you can make smarter decisions about visibility into what your workforce knows and what they want to know as well. It gives people more engagement in their roles. It gives them the ability to be more internally mobile in your agency rather than losing them to the public sector. So I think, you know, allowing leaders to have insight to personalize learning journeys and align upskilling with mission needs and track their return on investment instead of just completion rates of courses gives them much more meaningful ability to lead their teams to success. And I think, you know, when you combine the right format with the right tools and create culture, you're not just upskilling individuals, you're evolving an entire organization. And I think, again, circling back around to our first point, I think that's exactly what it's going to take to meet the pace of change. When you look at how far cloud and AI and data have all come in the last few years, that's what you're going to have to deal with.
I think your point of the metrics, not just, hey, I completed my course, but what am I doing with what I've learned and how am I making the mission better is a great way for folks to look at this and move forward. Unfortunately for us, Tony, we're out of time. So let me thank my guest. Tony Holmes is the practice lead for solutions architects for the public sector at Pluralsight. Tony, thanks so much for taking the time.
It's been tremendous. Thanks again.
I'm Jason Miller, and you're watching Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more from Workforce Reimagined.